Hi, I'm Kristen Robinson of Stage Naked, and for the next 35 minutes, we are going to talk about sticky storytelling, how you can get started telling interpretive stories. I have been in this field for, 25 years now, and I started off in state parks in California. And then in that role as well, I also moved into a role where I was mentoring and recruiting and coaching frontline interpreters in their storytelling roles. So I can tell you that no matter where you are at, whether your role is on the front lines, behind the scenes, if you're doing short form, long form, somewhere in between, these tools help you create engaging interpretive storytelling experiences that people remember. I want you to imagine with me for a moment that every story your organization tells, every program you create, does one of a few things. It creates a feeling in your audience that they really belong with you. And that's something that goes beyond just helping people feel welcome. Maybe you're looking for word of mouth buzz about you and the thoughts that you have provoked in your listeners. Or maybe you're looking for audience interest and support that allow you to both achieve your goals and become essential services in your communities. Or maybe you're dreaming big and you want all three of these things. Sticky storytelling achieves these goals because sticky stories are memorable. What makes them sticky is that they connect to something that matters to the audience already. They go beyond information to open doors to connection. And we know that people who feel connected are more likely to act on what they are hearing. So we want to think about what might be in their memory bank. What kind of tech do they play with? What pop culture do they consume? What are they hoping for from the next phase of their life? What are they dealing with on a daily basis? Once you identify those things about your audience, we can more accurately spot the things in our stories that will relate to something in their modern lives. Now, whatever else might be different about all four of those people, I guarantee you they have one thing in common if they are those ages in the world right now. They all just lived through COVID-19, just like all of you. So my mixed group lived through the pandemic. I can be making connections between what it was like living through COVID-19 at its various phases, what people in the 1840s were going through in their dealing of epidemics or they're trying to deal with healthcare issues. These are the connections that we want, because now that I've given my audience their first aha moment, which somewhere in there, they had a moment of thinking, oh God, I know exactly what that was like. I lived that. From that first connection point, the audience can become more curious about the parts of the story that aren't so familiar because they have a connection point. We get a little more invested once we realize they may not be so different from me. The last thing you want to think about is the end game. What do you want your audience thinking about or doing as a result of your talk or commentary? Now, when I workshop this with people, the very first thing we do is we take that big list of audience specifics and we brainstorm the biggest list we can of things that our audience might have in common with our subject. And this can be anything from daily life activities to major life dreams. We want to compare that big list to the story that we want to share, looking for potential connection points. So we've winnowed it down. There might still be quite a few connection points, though, too many for a single story. So we want to look for the best ones. And the best connection points will help you build to that one thing that you want your audience thinking about when they leave. The last one of these parallels is invoking you. This is when you use a you or your in a statement or question. The magic of you and your is the moment the brain hears it, it sits up and says, oh, she's talking to me. Okay, I better think about this. So, for example, think of a time when you tried to keep your loved ones happy and it didn't go quite as you had planned. And if I paused, which I can't, but if I paused and I really let you think of that, and I'd be watching the body language, I might even allow or invite is a better word. I might even invite a little bit of conversation if people had anything they wanted to share that wasn't too personal. But it's the magic of you and your. The brain will start trying to answer those questions or think about those statements. In the story that we were creating, we were thinking about a couple of different you questions that we were going to use to introduce different segments of the talk. Because again, we're trying to take people through a narrative. So questions are a really great way to do that. We're going to come to that at the end. And then finally, some senses. And we can have people imagine the senses of the experience of eating fudge. And if they've had these different kinds of sensory experiences, obviously the sight of things melting. So there's different ways that we can actually bring the rock to life. We discussed using the rock itself as the protagonist because the rock was what's going to have all the forces acted upon it. The other great thing about questions, and I just love them for this, questions invite people to think creatively. Creative thinking is what sparks ongoing curiosity. There's a Revolutionary War site that I've done some work with. They had a wonderful exploration that lended itself to 3 sections, each one kicked off by a question. Whether or not to go to war when the choice was go fight and hopefully help the revolution to succeed, or stay home and protect your farm and your family and make sure the farm doesn't fail and the crop gets in. Both of those are important. How do you decide which is more important? How do you decide who's the patriot and who's the traitor when each side thinks they're the patriot and the other side is the traitor? And no matter how hard the decision, one is risking everything for the cause, the right thing to do. Think about your audience. How does your subject connect to what is most important, already important, to them? You want to plan to take between a third and half of your time using interpretive techniques like senses and parallels and universals and you questions to help your audience have their own, oh, I know just what that's like kind of moment. And finally, involve them. Ask them questions strategically placed throughout the whole talk to get them imagining and considering and remembering. And if you covered your basics up front and you began with the end in mind, your final question sparks their curiosity and leaves them walking away thinking about what they've just experienced.